and welcome to Lifespan Development. Congratulations on taking one of the first big steps to not only getting through the material in this class, but also to being successful in the class. My name is Christopher Gotti. I am both the instructor for this course, the narrator throughout all of the different presentations that you'll be watching throughout the entirety of this course, the creator of this site information that you'll be going through, and of course your grader for the class as well. What we're going to be doing in this very first video is just providing you a broad overview of what this class will entail. It's hopefully going to illuminate some of the more important things that I want you to be mindful of as we progress throughout the entirety of this class. So what are we going to be covering in this very first module specifically? On this first video, what I aim to do is provide you again with just an overview of what's going to happen or unfold as you progress throughout the class. I also spend some time talking about something that is obviously very important to many of you, and that's how the course will be graded. We'll go over the details of all the different things that you'll need to do and how I'll calculate out grades at the very end of the class. I also want to provide you in this first video some suggestions that I want you to take home with you to ensure that not only are you getting a good grade in this class, but you're getting the most out of it, because this class is filled with a lot of different things that I think are very valuable and applicable. And trying to not only do well in the class work is important, but getting the most out of it's important. And hopefully with some of the suggestions I'm going to give at the end of this video, you can actually take that information and use it to get the most out of everything in this class. In the next video that we're going to be watching after this one, the other one that's a part of this first module, what we'll be doing is covering kind of the basic elements of what developmental psychology is all about. We're going to discuss some of the different areas that we'll be exploring in this class, as well as some of the other areas that you might encounter along the way if you pursue a career that relates to developmental psychology or you take other classes that reference some developmental psychology topics. We're not only going to be covering those specific things that are kind of broad overviews of the path, but we'll also, in that next video, spend a little bit of time talking about how developmental psychologists do their work. In essence, we're going to be talking about some of the research procedures and processes that go into some of the findings that we'll be discussing throughout this class. In terms of how we're going to be addressing the material for this class, I want you to first be aware that this class is broken up into a large number of components. The first thing that we're going to be doing throughout every single portion of the class is presenting material in this format. We'll be going over some of the critical ideas, big names, and things that really shape developmental psychology. This will be not necessarily supplemented, but kind of paired with a chapter reading that you will be assigned for each of the different modules. After going through the readings and watching the presentations, you'll be asked to complete a written assignment during all the different modules where you'll be getting new information to help allow students a chance to interact with each other and feel kind of a sense of community while they're taking this class. I've also included a forum discussion portion of the class. The forum discussions currently are not worth a large percentage of your grade or extra credit, but I still encourage you to try to engage in these even if they're not quite as weighted as some of the other things. This allows people to really bounce ideas off of each other and feel like they're in a class, which is sometimes really challenging when you take these online courses. More details about the forum discussions and other things can actually be found in the course syllabus, which I encourage you to look at after you're done watching this video. In addition to those 12 modules where we will be presenting information, there's also 3 very short modules where you'll be taking exams. Now, these exams are all going to be in the same format. They're going to be roughly 40 to 50 multiple choice questions. And what I will do to ensure that all of the exams are worth the same amount is I will weight the questions slightly differently based on how many there are in each exam. That will ensure that all of the exams will be out of 60 points regardless of how many questions you actually encounter. To take these exams, you will have an hour to go through them, which means you do need to make sure that you're not just paging through the book to try to find answers to all these questions. But the nice thing with the exams is they are what we call non-cumulative, that they're only going to cover the material that was leading up to the exams. So for each exam, you'll essentially have 4 modules of information that you'll be taking a test on. The information covered in these exams will consist of material from the presentations, like the one you're watching here, the readings that you're going to be assigned, again, that are adjacent to all the presentations that you'll be watching, and also a few of the videos that I will reference and suggest that you go watch. Now, some of these videos are very short, maybe a few minutes in time. Others are extremely long. In fact, when we get to the end of the class, there's a video that's approximately an hour and 10 minutes long, if I recall correctly. So you want to make sure that when I tell you to watch video, you're not only doing that to get a good grade on tests, but you're doing that to really round out the information that you're accumulating in each of the different modules. Move on to how the class is graded, I do want to revisit one of the things I just mentioned in the previous slides. It's because this particular element is one of the more heavy things that kind of comes with the class. One of the things that tends to be the main challenge and the main thing that students focus on as we start to progress, and that's those written assignments. Now, with these written assignments, what you're going to see is a collection of questions or prompts that you need to answer. And with each of the different questions and prompts, you're going to see that there's a value assigned to each of them. So some questions might be worth 5 points, others worth 10, others worth 2 if they're very small. But essentially, all of them should kind of give you a sense of not only what I'm looking for, but exactly how much each of them is valued at. If you're looking at what the questions will entail in these write-ups, some will ask for full summaries of something. Tell me about a specific topic that you found interesting. Or in some cases, tell me about the entire section. Just give me a comprehensive overview of it, asking you to kind of find a way to compartmentalize, break down, and kind of understand the material at a deeper level. All of these questions are designed to give you a chance to not only show me that you understand what it was we covered, but also allow you to process this information at a deeper level. I do have to warn you that these things do often take time, and for you to be successful in these, writing thorough responses is really, really critical. I don't want to see a collection of notes submitted for these written assignments. I don't want to see short little blurbs. I need to be able to verify comprehension in these posts, and the only way that's possible is for you to provide very thorough responses to things with clear responses or clear statements throughout that really show comprehension. Partial credit or no credit can sometimes be awarded if I don't see that information that I'm looking for in these responses. Another thing that's really important to note with these assignments, because we've had issues with this, is that I do need you to provide these responses in either the text box that's given to you with the assignment instructions, or in the actual form or file version that's accepted by the different assignment prompts. Usually doc and docx files are the ones that are preferred, but there are some other ones that can be uploaded onto the Canvas site as well. Just make sure when you try to do this that it does get accepted by the site and that you're not trying to submit Google Shares or some type of Apple file that's not compatible with the Canvas website. Unfortunately, we have had students in the past that have tried to either submit these things or attempt to kind of give an indication that they're trying to submit these things, but they couldn't upload them. And I want you to understand that files being corrupt or not being submitted because they're in some weird version are counted as late. So you want to make sure that you get those things in on time and that you get them in the right format on time. In terms of other things that are important, that thing I mentioned last is a really critical thing. In this particular class, what I want to do is ensure that everybody's on the same footing. I want to make sure that when you're having those forum discussions, that you're all present at roughly the same time. Want to make sure that when you're submitting these weekly assignments or daily assignments, depending upon where we are in the class, that you're submitting them on time. It really hurts your ability to comprehend the material. It hurts your ability to process the next set of material if you start falling behind. So what I've done for this class to try to encourage people to stay on top of things is I've established a very strict late policy. Essentially, anything submitted on the class site, even a second late, will be marked by Canvas as late, and it will receive a considerable deduction. I encourage you to check out the syllabus for the specific deduction that's going to be incurred. I've varied a little bit from semester to semester, but it's always a relatively strong deduction to ensure that people are avoiding that procrastination that sometimes tends to really hurt students in their ability to process the material. So please, if you can, do your best to get these things in on time, have full responses, and just be aware of how much weight is on each of the questions so you can provide information accordingly. In terms of how you're going to be graded for this class, for those of you that don't know, Berkeley City College and Peralta in general all have kind of an odd grading system associated with them. Instead of getting pluses and minuses, all you can be awarded at these schools are A's, B's, C's, D's, or F's. And in this class, to get to one of those grades, most of your weight or most of your grade is going to be kind of split evenly between the write-ups that we just talked about in the previous slide and the exams that I discussed 2 slides ago. The 12 different write-ups that you'll be submitting are all worth 15 points each. Added up, that comes to 180 points, which is exactly 50% of your grade. The 3 exams that you're taking, remember they're non-cumulative, all multiple choice. You can have an hour to take them, will all be worth 60 points, and added up, they come to 180 points as well, which is, again, the other 50% of your grade. And for this particular class, what I've decided to do with the forum discussions is provide you with 1 extra credit point for the discussion forums every time you actually get one in on time. So that means you can earn up to 12 points in total if you've done every single discussion forum on time with each module at the end of this semester. These are not going to be indicated on the class site when you complete them. I am going to go, when I go through all the material at the very end of the class, give you a point for each successful forum discussion post that's got real content in it. I've seen some students in past semesters post just random kind of off-topic questions and not do anything else, or others respond with 1 word or 2. That won't get you that extra credit point. You do need to actually provide a really thorough response to somebody or a question and comment that shows that you're engaging in this community and you're talking to others. On that note, please also recognize that you are engaging with other students. So any behavior that's problematic or any comments that are hurtful will definitely result in me asking you to no longer post on the forums and monitoring your behavior and trying to figure out if we need to take other actions. But for the vast majority of the class, this particular option is something that can actually boost your grade considerably. It can bring you up about 3%. And when many of us find ourselves at that cusp of the next grade, this can really get us over that hump. There are no other extra credit opportunities offered in this class, so make sure you're doing well with the written assignments and the exams and you're keeping up with those forum posts. In terms of where you'll land at the end of the class, what I do is look at how many points out of the 360 points you've earned, and if 90% of your or you've earned 90% of the points, you will earn an A for this particular class. If you're in the 80s, anywhere between 80 and 89.99%, you'll earn a B. 70s will earn you a C. 60s will earn you a D. And unfortunately, anything lower than that, I'll have to award you an F. It's very typical in this class that the vast majority of the people that stick it out do end up earning some type of A or B simply because of the way the class is designed. But I do want to warn you that there is no kind of extra bumps that are given at the very end of the semester for this class, and there's no last second extra credit activities. So you want to make sure that you're really mindful of where you're at in the class, what you'll need to do to get the grade that you think you need for this particular class, and just kind of work on ensuring that you get to where you need to be by knowing the lay of the land in advance. In terms of how to be successful in that pursuit of not only a grade, but content and knowledge, there's a lot of different things that I like to suggest to students. But if I want to kind of whittle it down to just a few things, a lot of it revolves around how to approach the material, how to try to tackle it in a successful way. And to understand the best way to approach the material, I like to kind of provide students with a very succinct list of things that tend to really have the most impact. First thing that I always suggest to students, which is something that is unfortunately been missed by many students that take this class, is to do the readings and do them before you start studying for the exam. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of students admit to me midway through the semester that they'd yet to get the book, or that they hadn't opened the book until they started studying for the exams. And that's a really dangerous way to approach this class. The textbook not only will provide you with different information from what I'm covering in these presentations, but it's also going to provide you with a second voice on even if we're covering the exact same information. So going through those readings, making sure that you're keeping up with them and taking copious notes while you're going through those readings can really help, not only with the exams, but also with the written assignments. Another thing that you really want to do when you're going through this class is take really good notes when watching the videos, and giving yourself enough time, this is important, to actually watch the videos thoroughly. In this particular class, what I tend to see is a real split in the way students kind of succeed or struggle in this class. Some students who recognize that they have the ability to pause when they need, to take breaks, to kind of digest this material at their own pace, tend to excel in these online classes. Those that struggle with pacing themselves, those that struggle with getting to this stuff in advance, do tend to really find these online classes extremely challenging. So if you can find a way to give yourself ample time to watch the videos in a slow, not breakneck pace and take copious notes, what you should be able to find is that processing this information is actually a lot easier than in some other in-person classes. Another thing that you would want to do after you've gone through these videos and done the readings is give yourself ample time to write the written assignments. Many students tend to wait until the very last minute to start working on these. That is a really problematic attempt or problematic way of attempting to get through these written assignments. If you can write these assignments a day or a couple days in advance, and then take a day off or a couple hours off, and then revisit those written assignments, what you'll be able to do is kind of refine some of the statements that you're making, recognize maybe where you went astray on specific topics, and be able to turn in a product that's much better, much more refined, and really gets at the things that hopefully the questions we're asking you to get at. It also will help with avoiding those last second scrambles that lots of students run into, where they only submit an incomplete or sort of an incoherent final assignment. So if you can do your best to really try to work on getting this stuff done early, it'll help immensely. Another thing that I always suggest to students when they start getting towards the exams is that you treat these exams as you would treat any other exam in an in-person class. I know many students historically have, when they've signed up for this online class, come to believe that the exams are going to be easy because you can just look through your notes and look through your books and answer the questions by just going off of those. But please recognize that these tests are designed to ask you about how to apply a lot of the concepts that we're looking at, to ask you to kind of differentiate between things that might seem, if you're just looking at your slides or your notes, extremely related. to understand what the questions are getting at, be really successful in these exams that are intentionally timed to kind of make sure that you know this stuff. You want to make sure that you've studied up long in advance, that you're really well prepared for these exams. If you are, know that you should be fairly successful on them. In terms of just general things that I always like to suggest to students, I've got another list that I do want to provide you, much of which will overlap with some of the stuff that we discussed before in terms of how to tackle the material. One of the things that's important to know when you're getting into this class is that this class, for all intents and purposes, is a relatively challenging class for many people taking it. It's not necessarily one of the most difficult classes offered at Peralta, but it is not necessarily easy either. It's a class that's designed for sophomores and juniors at a four-year college, and that just means that the level of content in the class is going to be relatively robust. It also means that I'm going to place expectations on you in terms of your writing skills, in terms of when you get stuff done, that maybe you don't have placed on you in some of the other classes that you might be taking through the Peralta system or at other schools for that matter. But know that if you are successful in this class, that means you would have been successful in a class like this offered at any major four-year institution. In terms of kind of thinking in that manner, it also means that you really want to do your best to, as I've mentioned a couple times, give yourself the time and give yourself the kind of ability to kind of succeed in this class. It means trying to get stuff done early. As I've mentioned before, deadlines for this class are absolute. And if you're looking for something that really separates out great students from just average students, it's usually who gets stuff done earlier. Procrastination is something that just ruins your ability to edit appropriately, process information at the level that you need to process it at, and to retain that information for the long run. There's numerous studies that have shown that if you try to cram something in your head, you very well might be successful for the short run. But to be able to keep that information with you for weeks or months or years, you really need to give yourself the time to be able to break down that information, understand it at a level that can help you retain it and really link it to other things that you've learned. Another thing that's really important in this class is I want you to feel comfortable asking me questions about the material. If you have a question about something that we're addressing or something the book has mentioned, send me an email or try to attend an office hour if I'm holding them during that session. It's something that can really help clarify things quickly instead of forcing you to have to try to dig through numerous resources that maybe are unreliable. If you are going to ask questions, though, please do it early. I've had a few students ask questions a couple minutes or even hours before something is due, and that makes it very challenging to provide ample responses to those questions. But if you do, give yourself the amount of time that's needed and you run into questions, please feel free to email them to me or ask them to me in some other way, and I'll be happy to try to help you out. If you're looking for one last thing that can really help you get that grade up a little bit and get the most out of this class, is to really try to find, when we're going through each different section, ways to apply what we're covering in this class to your own life. Some of you might not have younger siblings, or some of you might not have your own kids, or some of you might not be even exposed to people of a variety of different ages. But in this class, we're going to be covering people from the moment they're conceived to the last moments of their life. You're going to find applications in the material, even if you are, in your mind, exposed to only a very small percentage of the population. And I promise you, the more you work at applying the information that we're covering, the more you'll be able to tie what it is we're going through in this class to different elements of your life. And it will help you really appreciate not only this class, but a lot of these different things that you're encountering every single day. mark the end of this first presentation. Congrats on getting through it. In the next presentation, as I mentioned before, what we're going to be doing is just providing a broad overview of what developmental psychology is all about, how we're going to tackle it in this class, and also some of the different things that developmental psychologists use to really understand the topics that they're interested in exploring. Thanks for watching, folks, and hopefully I'll be speaking with you soon. Take care.